when I attended Morgan as an undergrad, I
Hmm.
wanted to major in Africana studies, believe it or not.
Oh, because of
African American. Yeah, because of
okay.
my passion. Like
Yep.
I was like, all right, I'm gonna
Hmm.
go to college and I'm gonna become a history teacher. I'm gonna major in Africana studies or African American history. And my mother said, "No, you're not." She said, "No, you're not." She was doing her research, and I give thanks for her because she had the foresight to tell me what this economy was going to become, where was this
Mm.
economy headed. And you see now in 2022, we are in this is a STEM-based economy. Okay.
Mhm.
And I'll get into the programs that I have available, later on that's encouraging our babies to get in STEM. Because if we don't get in STEM, if we do not get in STEM, we're literally going to be locked out of this economy within the next decade. All of these
Wow.
jobs that they have right now, where people are delivering stuff, they're going to
Yes.
have cars with autonomous driving that's going to be delivering packages. So after a while, they're
Wow.
going to need people like us humans
Absolutely.
to deliver
Absolutely.
packages. So if you don't have a, a,
Mm.
a STEM degree or STEM background within the next decade or so, you're going to be locked
Mm.
out. And then also a lot of African centered people or pro black people or black nationalist people, they run around here and pump their fists about nation building. You cannot nation build without scientists, without
Absolutely.
mathematicians, and without engineers.
Absolutely.
So I give
Absolutely.
so I give thanks that I had a mother who had the foresight to say to know where this economy was headed. So she said, "Oh no, you're not going to major in history. No, 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 no. You're going to school for engineering." And
Yeah, TK, Jersey. I've been on the grind, man. All it took was patience. That money on my mind, man. All I see is hating. He jocking on the low, man. You know the kid is wavy. Like how you mad at me when you know you're fucking lazy. Should've changed, should've changed.
What's up, everybody? It's your girl, Health is Key, and you are tuned into the Health and Hip Hop Podcast Show. And we don't have Composer Rail here today, but it's still going to be a great episode. Excuse me. So I wanted to introduce y'all to my guest today. If you don't know, if this is your first time tuning in, this show is dedicated to established artists, unsigned artists, also busy people, creative people, and we're just shedding light to show you how to get to your purpose, how to serve your purpose without being burnt out, and as well as keeping your peace of mind. And so there's so many ways that our peace of mind is getting disrupted. And so, I want to shed light to that. So today we have Dr. Mayat, and I want her to introduce herself because she's so amazing to me. I would love for you to introduce yourself first so that people can know who you are, and we can take it from there.
all right. Well, peace and love, family. My name is Dr. Ma'at. I am a mother, a professor, a
Mhm.
creator, and an activist, or I would prefer to say activator. Like I like to activate.
Wow.
Yeah, I like to activate that maroon spirit in our people. Activate the genius within the black child, black students of mine. And so I consider myself more so an activator than an activist.
Wow.
But yeah, that's who I am in a nutshell. I'm a student of history. I love history. My craft is electrical engineering, so that's what I teach
Okay.
at Morgan State
Wow.
University. I teach in
Nice.
the engineering department. My passion is history, and my passion is also engineering education. And so, my research interest is engineering education. And so, what I've been doing is working on developing pedagogies that will increase the comprehension and support the interests of African American STEM learners. And in fact, my team and I, we just published a paper that has been accepted by the American Society for Engineering Education
Wow.
organization. It's a big organization. They have conferences each year. And so our paper was accepted, and we wrote about a summer camp that we established, a cybersecurity summer camp that we established last year. We actually made history because this was the first cybersecurity, all African American female cybersecurity
Oh,
summer
wow.
camp. and we used culturally responsive strategies to engage the students, support their interests, and to increase their comprehension of the cybersecurity concepts that was presented to them. So that's me in a nutshell.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. Where should I start? Okay. So, um, you becoming a professor, correct? And as well as just, how should I say, interested in history, right? How did you like how did that become your interest? Was that something that, was in you as a child, or was it something that, experience, occurred that, lured you to wanting to be interested in history? Like, how did that come about for you?
Okay, so history and engineering, or just history, because I can talk about
Well,
both.
so let's do history first.
All right,
Let's do history
let's do
first.
history first. Okay, and
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do that.
so I wasn't really a history person as a child. I wasn't
Hmm.
interested in history at all. It wasn't until I was about 15 years old. I was downtown in Baltimore City hanging out with my friends, and I don't know why we were downtown hanging out. We probably cut school. I don't know, but we were downtown hanging out, and there was a gentleman at he set up a table at the Lexington Market. And so if you come to
Okay.
Baltimore, you ask anybody,
Hmm.
where's the Lexington Market? The Lexington Market is like a trade area where, people are selling food and clothes, hair products. I mean, just virtually everything. It's like a
Okay.
black market, right? And
Hmm.
so we're down there, we're hanging out. There was a brother who was selling books at the time.
Hmm.
And so he called my friends and I over, and he said, look, I have this book. I have this book that I want to, sell you. And so we're looking like, oh, we don't want to buy any books, man. We're cruising along, man. We don't want to buy any books.
Hmm.
And so the brother said, you out of my friend group, he said, you come here. And so I walked back over to him, and he said, I'm going to give you this book for free. And I said, well, what's this book? He handed me the book. It was From the Browder File by Anthony T. Browder.
Hmm.
From the Browder File. So in that particular book, Anthony T. Browder talks about, a plethora of things. He talks about Kemet,
Hmm.
melanin,
Hmm.
hair,
Hmm.
holidays, religions, and all of that stuff. And so I read the book. And what made me read the book was that the gentleman told me that Erica Badu throws those books out at her during her concerts. And so at that particular time, when I was 15, Erica Badu she was a big person. And so,
Yes.
she was, she dropped on, and, she dropped her album, Baduism. I think that was the first album. And so she was
Hmm.
really popular. And so he said, well, yeah, Erica Badu throws these books in her, in her audience, during her concerts. And I was like, wow, Erica Badu is throwing these out. And so it piqued my interest. It made me want to read the book. And when I read that book, it literally unlocked my mind. You know how like we're mentally shackled, like all of us, literally, like
Hmm.
from the time we're born, as we matriculate through the public food system, the chains get tighter and tighter and tighter. Anthony T.
Hmm.
Browder, I credit him with the person who came along and kind of just unlock my mind. And so by 15, I'm like, hey, I want to go natural. I went to my mom. I said, I want to grow my perm out. Then when I was 17, I locked my hair. And so he, again, and he made me interested in learning history, because I started to realize that
Mm.
when you learn history, you're learning about yourself. So to not know history is to be ignorant of self. And that's what
Absolutely.
he taught me at the age of 15. So literally, once I read that book, I said, oh my goodness, I need to learn more. And so I went to a place called Everyone's Place. This is a bookstore owned by Baba Nati and his wife, Mama Tabby, in Baltimore. I call that the Kemet of consciousness, or the Mecca of consciousness. And
That
so
bookstore? The
yes, that
bookstore
particular
itself?
bookstore. Yes.
Okay.
And so I went there, and I said, Baba, I need some work. I'm reading this book, and it's teaching me all of these new things. And so Baba Nati um, recommended Dr. Naeem Akbar's work,
Mhm.
Breaking the Chains of Psychological Slavery. So I read
Mhm.
that work. And then I also read the book, The Community of Self. Then from the community of self,
I
I
have
read the
a question.
philosophies and opinions of Marcus Garvey. And then before
Wait,
you
I
know
have
it,
a question. I'm so sorry. I have a question. I'm so sorry. That these books were that was the second and third book you read from the actual from that first encounter. That those were the second. Wow. Okay. I'm sorry. I just wanted to because that's wow. Okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
yeah,
I'm so sorry. I had to ask that.
no, yeah. And so literally, like it was just I was hungry. It's kind of like when you I don't know, it's when someone gives you the knowledge,
Yes.
it's just you just it's like you just wanted it was like an addiction because it's like I'm learning things about myself and my people that I look I'm like in the 10th or 11th grade. I've never heard about Kemet. No one talked to me about melanin. No one talked about how
Really.
we're mentally shackled as a result
Mhm.
of slavery. No one talked about us being miseducated. So I mean, this stuff was mind blowing, and I wanted more, and it felt good just to learn about self. And so
Wow.
again, I just kept learning and learning and learning. And just like I said, I understood the connection between history and self. The more you learn about your history, the more you learn about yourself. The more you
Absolutely.
learn about history, the more you learn about the present condition that you're in. You're able to
Absolutely.
properly assess
Absolutely.
the present condition, and you're able to make predictions of the future the more you learn about history. And then
Wow.
in 2014, I met a brother. His name is Brother Onkaket, and he
Mhm.
introduced me to the work of Dr. John Henry Clark, Dr.
Mhm.
Ben, right?
Mhm.
All of those people, Dr. Ben,
Mhm.
Dr. John Henry Clark, Dr. John Jackson. And then I met another brother. He's getting ready to be a doctor, Dr. Asar Winkler, Dr. Asar
Mhm.
Winkler. And he's the leader of the Typical New African Thought here in Baltimore City. He invited me on his show and while we were talking, he introduced me to the work of Dr. Amos Wilson. So now I'm
Wow.
reading the work of Dr. Amos Wilson. And so it's just been an ongoing journey.
Wow. Wow. Okay, so I do want to touch the engineer factor of your life as well, but and there's going to be more that I want to touch base with the history information as well, but I realized that I did not ask you our famous question. So before we even go to the engineer question, I wanted to know like one, who's your favorite like hip hop artist and why? Because I feel like with our show, right, as well, I want to bridge the gap between just different generations. And so I feel like people could correlate more or listeners could correlate more if this is their first time hearing you or seeing you, or even if your community that follows you as well may not know this information, but I feel like we connect a little more too by the music that
Absolutely.
we like and the music that we choose. So I would love to know one, especially since with that background, um who's your favorite artist and why, your favorite hip-hop artist and why,
Oh
because
my goodness, that's like it's kind of hard, right? When you think about it, it's like I'm torn between Queen Latifah and Lauryn Hill. If I had to choose, like I'm like kind of yeah, like I'm kind of torn um
uh-huh,
between
absolutely.
between the both of them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Lauryn Hill. I mean, what can you say about Lauryn Hill?
Absolutely.
Super conscious, intelligent, articulate. That's why they had to get Lauryn Hill out of there. Okay,
Mm.
they couldn't usher in the Nicki Minaj's, and it's no disrespect to Nicki
I
Minaj
understand.
and
I
Cardi B and
understand.
those sisters, but they couldn't usher in the Little Kims and Nicki Minaj and all of those folks. They had to, without getting Lauryn Hill out of there.
Absolutely.
I love
Absolutely.
Lauryn Hill and Rhapsody. She reminds me so much of
Mm.
Lauryn Hill. So I'm a huge fan of
Absolutely.
Rhapsodies, but to me, Rhapsody is like this generation's Lauryn Hill.
Yes,
Yeah, so
absolutely.
I love that. I love that queen. And but Lauryn Hill, you said why? Like I said, super articulate, super intelligent, super conscious. Lauryn Hill and people like her and Erica Badu and all of those sisters that from the neo soul genre, Indie and all of them,
Absolutely.
and then
Mhm.
Lauryn Hill. They made it cool to be natural. They made it cool, to wear
Absolutely.
your afro. And I'm talking about for my
Absolutely.
generation, because of course
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
sisters, yeah,
Mhm.
of course, if you go back to the Black Power
Absolutely.
movement with the Panther Party and the US organization, those sisters were rocking afros and throwing up the Black Power fist. But for my generation, and I'm an 80s
Mhm.
baby. And so
Mhm.
they made in the 90s, they made rocking your afro and wearing locks cool. And so like I said, I love Lauryn Hill. She's one of my favorite artists, hip
Absolutely.
hop artists.
No, absolutely. Okay, so definitely going to touch base on that. So, let's go back to the engineering question because I'm going to bridge it in a second. But I definitely want to, because now that usually it's not split between two, so the fact that we have to actually touch two propositions, I definitely want to know about what actually intrigued you to engineer life. Yeah, how did you
Now,
get into that?
it isn't that odd because it's like history and engineering, but
Absolutely.
it's crazy. It's crazy how um they merged, how they converged, with one
Mhm,
another. And so I wanted to go when I attended Morgan as an undergrad. I
mhm.
wanted to major in Africana studies, believe it or not.
Oh, because of
African American. Yeah, because
okay.
of my passion. Like
Yep.
I was like, all right, I'm gonna
Mhm.
go to college and I'm gonna become a history teacher. I'm gonna major in Africana studies or African American history. And my mother said, no, you're not. She said, no, you're not. She was doing her research, and I give thanks for her because she had the foresight to tell me what this economy was going to become, where was this
Mm.
economy headed. And you see now in 2022, we are in this is a STEM-based economy. Okay.
Mhm.
And I'll get into the programs that I have available, later on that's encouraging our babies to get in STEM. Because if we don't get in STEM, if we do not get in STEM, we're literally going to be locked out of this economy within the next decade. All of these
Wow.
jobs that they have right now, where people are delivering stuff, they're going to
Yes.
have cars with autonomous driving that's going to be delivering packages. So after a while, they're
Wow.
going to need people like us humans
Absolutely.
to deliver
Absolutely.
packages. So if you don't have a,
Mm.
a, a STEM degree or STEM background within the next decade or so, you're going to be
Mm.
locked out. And then also a lot of African centered people or pro black people or black nationalist people, they run around here and pump their fists about nation building. You cannot nation build without scientists, without
Absolutely.
mathematicians, and without engineers.
Absolutely.
So I give
Absolutely.
so I give thanks that I had a mother who had the foresight to say to know where this economy was headed. So she said, "Oh no, you're not going to major in history. No, 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 no. You're going to school for engineering." And she came home with this
Mhm.
magazine, and the magazine showed like the top 3 paying majors. And at the top was computer and electrical engineering. And
Mhm.
so I said, well, I've always been great with math and science. So I think I should be okay with pursuing, an engineering degree. Well, got in engineering. Engineering was very challenging, as an undergrad. It challenged me. And at that time, I wasn't used to being challenged. I kind of coasted through K through 12. I wasn't really challenged. But at Morgan, I was challenged. And so I started learning engineering concepts. I love the problem solving aspect of engineering, the analytical aspect of engineering, the meticulous aspect of engineering. And so at the critical thinking, that would summarize it, that would qualify all of this.
Mhm.
The critical thinking aspect of engineering. And so I fell in love with the discipline.
Mm.
And then when I during my senior year, one of my professors, Dr. Carl White, he approached me and he said, "Look, what's your GPA?" I said, "My GPA is at that particular time it was like 3.79." And he said,
Mhm.
"Well, look," he said, if you graduate with a 3.5 or better, I was already at a 3.79. He said, "What I'll do is bring you into my 5-year PhD program and pay for you to go back to school. So give me a stipend, pay for my tuition, books, and fees to get my PhD." And so when I graduated, I had a few job offers on the table, but I turned them all down to pursue my advanced degree. And so that is my engineering, history. But then I guess
Mhm.
your question is, how did they merge, right?
Well, absolutely. Now that I'm thinking about it, because I was actually going to bring that up later, but it's a great point to bring it up now because thinking about like now that I'm looking at some of your actual content to prepare myself for the interview, I was seeing some of your actual content on the history of mathematician, and I'm like, wow, like I'm like, so that's crazy. So yes, please, like,
So
please,
so
yeah.
so again, I'm a history buff, and now you
Mm-hmm.
see that I have a STEM background. So,
Yes.
and so when I again going back to this brother Ankaket, he
Mhm.
started teaching me about the African origins of STEM. And he encouraged me to study STEM from an African centered perspective. And so it was mind blowing to learn that, oh, African people are the pioneers of STEM. Remember, this is STEM history, right? That they
Mhm.
don't teach us. And so I'm learning from him. Oh my goodness, the oldest mathematical artifacts and documents are located in Africa. Look at the
Wow.
temples that were built, that were constructed, in Africa. So the oldest temples, calendars, clocks, like I said, mathematical documents that shows that our ancestors understood algebra, the Pythagorean
Mm.
theorem, geometry, and those different concepts, prior to the arrival of the Europeans. And then to read The Stolen Legacy by George G. James to learn that, oh, it was the Greeks who came over to us and stuff. So this is now history, but it's history as it relates to STEM. And so
Mm.
at Morgan, what I'm doing now is using an African centered pedagogy to teach K through 12 and university students STEM. And so within
Right.
the STEM, within the African
Wow.
centered STEM pedagogy, what do I
Mhm.
have to teach them? I had to teach them about the African contributions to STEM, and that is
Mm.
history. So I
Mm.
have merged,
That's deep.
both of
That's
my
amazing.
passions.
That's amazing. Speaking of, that's the same for me. Since I was, I want to say 5 or 6, when you brought up Queen Latifah, when I used to watch Living Single, when she had the hip hop magazine, that's what I had wanted to do. So when I saw her, I'm like, wow. So I actually went to school for journalism. But at that time, I was like, eating whatever. I was close to 250 pounds and things like that. So once my father passed away, um, I actually used that energy to become the person that I wanted to become. And so I started to eat better, the things that he instilled in me. How reached a level of kind of going to a bookstore, and then that encouraged you or intrigued you to learn more about history and all these different things. And for me, my father was already telling me all these different things, but I don't know. I guess because I was so into hip hop more than actual, or I idolized hip hop more than I idolized my father at the time. Now I don't, it's reversed. But at the time when he was telling me all these different things, I actually wasn't registering it. But once he passed away, it made me actually, I'm like, dang, I can't even believe it. So all the books that I have in my house on some of the same things you're talking about, they already were left for me. And so for me, I'm
Wow.
bridging it.
Beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm bridging it now with me becoming, in shape and getting healthier and learning the actual diet for indigenous people, and also teaching it to other women. And now I'm actually coming back to bringing it back to journalism by actually bringing it and bridging hip hop and bridging, health and, and bridging journalism all together. So it's amazing to hear how you bridged yours, because it just made me think of how I actually literally am bridging this gap into one. So thank you
Absolutely.
for sharing that with me. Yes, absolutely. So speaking of history, right, and generations, right, I wanted to discuss just some of the things that I've experienced and wanted your opinion on this um from over the years. So when I first started to bridge or come back into health and hip hop, joined this organization, and it called Health and Hip Hop. No, excuse me, Health Hip Hop is Green. Pardon me, I'm saying Health and Hip Hop. My show, Hip Hop is Green. It's so close to each other, but Hip Hop is Green, which is founded by Keith Tucker. And basically, what it is an organization throughout the nation. They have literally over 20 something chapters in each state. And we're basically, what we did was we would bring in, like, we would go into the schools in the urban communities and actually teach the children and the parents how to cook healthier meals and how to cook, vegan meals and things of these natures, to help the students be able to learn better, have better focus and more discipline and things like that. We were trying to teach them that a lot of that's due to the diets that we are, the sad diets that we're intaking. So long story short, one of the first meetings we had, which our group was led by me, and then it was also led by another leader who was about 20 or 30 years older than me. And so it was great because I've seen that I was able to bring the younger crowd to these events, and she was able to bring the older crowd to the actual events that we threw in the community. So my question is, a lot of the times we would have our meetings at first, and we would have the older generation and the younger generation. It would be like a gap. So I remember I remember one of the gentlemen that I would say he might have been over, maybe over 70, and he basically was in the meeting complaining about, the younger generation, and how, we're disrespectful and all these different things. And my point to him was, I definitely can understand where that's coming from, but that's the point of the meetings, because you have to explain to us why you feel like that, and we need to start explaining to y'all why we're not trusting y'all and y'all information when y'all have the wisdom and we have the energy. So I wanted to know if you had any opinions, or if you've experienced that, you being an 80s baby, and going through both generations, seeing the history and seeing the difference between what we could do to bridge that gap, or if you see a problem with the two generations and how we're not helping each other. Do you have any opinion on that, or experience on that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Because I am an 80s baby, I'm also a
Mm-hmm.
middle child. Remember J. Cole dropped middle child. And
Yes,
so
yes,
I'm literally a middle-aged woman, right? It's like,
yes,
I,
yes,
I can chill with the 20-year-olds and that
yes,
I teach, and
yes,
I can still kind
absolutely,
of relate to them, but then I
yes,
can also
absolutely,
relate to the baby boomers. My parents
absolutely,
are both
hmm
boomers. So I'm like in the
absolutely,
middle. Here are the boomers, and then here are
absolutely.
the what are the millennials and all of those. I
Yep,
forgot what they call the.
absolutely.
Yeah, and so
Yep,
I can relate to them. Like I said, I'm kind of in the middle,
absolutely.
and
Mm-hmm.
I do see that there is a I don't want to call it a separation, but there
Yeah,
is
absolutely.
I guess you could say more so a rift. And the elders
Mm-hmm.
on one side are saying they don't respect me, or they don't, these kids don't have any morals and values like they used to. And then on the other side, you have, you know, um, the younger generation who feel like, they want to express themselves, they want to be heard, they have a voice. They're fearless, they're not fearless, they're not backing down. And so I do kind
Mm-hmm.
of see like that riff there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that what's important is that, first of all, the younger generation, we gotta honor our elders, and we have to make the distinction between elders and olders. There's some people
Yes.
who, I respect my elders, absolutely,
Yes,
but
that's
there's
a
a
good
difference
one.
between elders and olders. Okay, what's the
Mm-hmm.
difference? Some
Mm-hmm.
people are old fools, and that's just what they are. Some fools just
Mhm,
get older, right? They just become old
mhm,
fools. Elders are the ones who have the wisdom, the experience, the know-how. And so we always have to respect our
absolutely.
elders and understand the difference between olders and elders. I don't respect olders, but I do respect my elders. Okay. And so we have to respect our elders. But remember, it's my aunt. So that's reciprocity. So the elders
Mhm,
should also respect the youth, like the young
mhm,
people, especially young people who are deserving of respect. You got to respect
mhm,
each other. We have to respect each
absolutely.
other. We have to understand one another. Um, a lot of the things, and another thing. So what I try to do when I'm interacting with the young people versus the older people, the elders, is understanding the generation. That's why history is
Mm.
so important.
Yes,
Under
yes, absolutely.
understanding understanding why the elders may say and do certain things, because all of us are
Mhm,
products of our era. That's first and foremost. And
ooh,
with
ooh,
yeah, and
yes.
so with each era, there's a culture, right, associated with each era. So when I look at my father, he likes to leave out of the house with his shirt, with button down shirts, and he tucks his shirts in, or when he
Mhm.
walks into a house, he takes his hat off. He's a product of his era and a product of his culture. And so, when he says and does certain things, I just say, okay, I know why he does that. That's what he did
Yeah.
in this time. And so when I look at the younger people, and they say and do certain things, oh, okay, so this is what's going on in this era, in this culture.
Mhm.
And so I think that when we understand the eras and the culture, that helps us to understand each
Yes,
other more. Why do
absolutely.
we say the things we say? Why do we think and behave the way we do?
Absolutely.
Because we are a product of our culture, our era, our
Absolutely.
environment. And so I think
Absolutely.
that would also help to bridge the gap between the older generation, our elders, and then the young folks, literally just trying to understand one another, and come
Mhm.
to some sort of I don't want to say, yeah, I would say resolve, come to some sort of resolve. But yes, I have seen, to answer your question, yes, I have seen the rift, and like you said, it's unfortunate because you have
Mhm.
the elders who have the wisdom, and then you have the
Wisdom.
youth who have the energy. And
Yeah,
so with
absolutely.
these two together, right, working together or unified, we would be unstoppable.
Absolutely. There was a movie viewing when I saw the movie based on Fred Hampton, that just was released a few years ago. And this is just an opinion that me and my friend were talking about after the movie. And one of the main things that we just, like I said, it's just an opinion. But what I noticed is him being so young. And I'm just like, wow, like it was amazing the things that he did at that young age. But I also saw like our conversation after was just based on like, I just feel like, well, we just felt like the only thing missing was just that older generation to be able to see or have experienced certain things that he may not have seen coming ahead, just being young and actually being a leader at that age. And so that was just something that I just felt. Now I'm not sure completely if that's right or wrong because I haven't studied too much about Fred Hampton in
Yeah, I was
particular.
just getting ready to say he
But
had some OGs
but I
that
wanted to, yeah, so I wanted to touch on that because that was just an opinion. So that's why I wanted to ask you about that because they didn't show any of that part in the movie. You just saw particularly him. Obviously, which you got to do your history, but just for some of us who may only watch the movie only, and seeing particularly what happened with him, just actually doing the things he did and then being, as we know, murdered at the end. So could you
yeah,
touch base on some of the actual, like you're about to tell me about some of the older people he had in his life?
yeah,
So could you
I'm
let me know
pretty
about
no,
that?
so I'm not like a student of like I
Okay.
haven't studied like
Okay.
Chairman Fred Hampton's life. I know a little bit about his work,
Okay.
his association or his affiliation with the Black
Mhm.
Panther Party. I think he was the member of the
Mhm.
Black Panther Party,
Yes.
and he was
Yes.
based in Chicago. His
Mhm.
son would actually be a really good person to
Wow.
interview.
Okay.
Fred
Absolutely.
Hampton, yeah, Chairman Fred Hampton Jr. But
Okay.
but I would go out on a limb and say this that I'm 99% sure that he had some folks, some older folks that guided him. He
Okay.
was very young. I think he was like in his early 20s.
Yeah, he was in his
Um,
20s. Yeah.
yeah, extremely articulate, extremely intelligent, and extremely passionate and
Absolutely.
dedicated and committed to the
Absolutely.
liberation of our people. Um,
Yes.
I
Absolutely.
just can't imagine him. And I've heard a few of his speeches. I've actually listened to him. I'm telling you, it's like
Mhm.
chilling when you listen to him. It's very chilling. But I'm pretty sure that there were some folks that were guiding him, that were around him, because you had older people even in the Black Panther Party.
Yes.
They were older than him. And so I'm pretty sure he was getting some sort of guidance from elders, just like me. Like a lot of people will hear me speak, but when you hear me speak, I'm a representation of the elders who have
Mhm.
taught me things over the years. Professor James Small, Dr. Kaba Kamene, Baba Olatunji, um, Baba Anthony T. Browder. These are my elders. These are the
Absolutely.
people who guide me. So I know when I'm up there and I'm talking, people, oh, that's Dr. Ma'at, but Dr. Ma'at is a product of
Mm.
her village, and the elders are a vital part of my village. And I forgot to mention, and please blame it on my head and not my heart, Baba Nwali Baruti,
Mhm.
Mama Yaba Rudy. These are my elders. And so again, I can't imagine um, someone of his I'm trying to think of the word stature, not having, some elders that he consulted with.
Got it. Okay, because that's the main thing with me. Like that's what I've learned just, growing up and just coming into myself is just making sure that I have, elders around me to ask questions to that I actually respect and honor. Because it's just I feel like a lot of our generation with social media and things like that, we're just a lot of us are kind of in our own thoughts. And so sometimes just having people who've been through what you've been through or just have wisdom can help you even if it's not information you can use now, but it can be information that you can use later. So I just want to
Absolutely.
just like pinpoint that it's so important for us, especially Black people or indigenous people, to have that connection between younger generation, our age, and then having a connection with older and making sure that we are feeding and reaching back to all
Abs-
three within each
Absolutely.
other.
And I just wanted to say this. I've always been a person that and my mother and people who know me can attest to this. When I was a child, I loved talking to my grandmother. I grew up in the church, and so I was
Mhm.
a part of a church that had an older congregation. and a very old congregation. And so I gravitated towards the older people, the people who were in like their 60s, 70s, 80s, even some 90s. One of my favorite persons who transitioned, she was in her 96 when she passed. Another brother was 105, Brother Robert Jackson. And so, but I gravitated towards the older generation. And so when I was coming up, yes, I may have had my little crew that I hung out with, but when I wanted to learn, I went to the elders to learn. And so it's very important, like you said, to make sure that the young people who are listening, to surround yourself, with some elders. I know you all may say some OGs, but to the OGs, man, you gotta tap into that. Gotta tap into that.
Absolutely. Okay, so I watched your interview with Miss Shahrazad Ali, and there was a point that I saw you make when you were saying you were battling, right? Like you were constantly battling between, trying to get the brothers to understand the sisters and trying to get the sisters to understand the brothers. Can you go into detail about like that experience of what's going on with trying to get us to understand one another, and where you think or believe or that's stimulating from? Because just like the generational, well, not gap or separation, but just like having, elderly people in the not communication, but connection with the younger generation is just as important as us building with each other with the opposite sex. So I wanted to know what's going on with that, and why is that occurring between the battling between trying to get us to understand each other?
Yeah, this battle has been going on for a while now, and it's really this wedge or that they've put or trying to put between Black men and Black women. They do it in a number of ways. This culture, American culture, is extremely toxic. When it comes to it's toxic for Black families. Trying to date our ideas of dating, our ideas of being loved. We really model a lot of our relationships after white folks. We model our relationships in marriages and what does the relationship look like, and a lot of that stuff we get from white folks, like how they define relationships. We this culture is extremely superficial. So I notice with young people, in particular, and I'm thinking about my son right now. I remember I was in a car with him one time, and we were riding down the street, and we pulled up to a red light, and there was a young lady at a bus stop, and he said, "Ma, she bad." And I said, "How do you know? How do you know? How do you know she's bad?" And he's like, "Well, look at her." And everything that he described was physical. And I'm not saying that a man shouldn't be attracted to a woman's, physical appearance. I'm not saying that at all. But to say that because of her physical appearance, she's bad. Now, I take issue with that. Because women are more than what what we look like, right? It's about her intelligence, her character, her goals, her morals, her values, her medical history, her family history, her family culture, her ideas about relationships, her ideas about what are you talking. So I can't tell you whether somebody is bad until we get through all of that. But this society is very superficial, very surface. And so we get with people for superficial reasons. And then we wonder why the relationships don't work out, because it wasn't rooted in anything. And so where did that come from? It comes from this culture. This culture teaches men, for the most part, to objectify women. And as I explained to my sons, a woman should be in your presence without you thinking about what you want to do to her sexually. She should be able to be around you and chill without you being the touchy-feely guy. Stop.
Yes, absolutely.
This culture over sexualizes males, and it also over sexualizes females. I can't just say it's males. It over sexualizes us. And so this culture is extremely toxic, and it produces toxic people, and toxic people get together and form toxic relationships. And so this wedge and stuff that you see, a lot of that comes from the toxicity that we literally experience, the toxicity that is literally ingrained in us. You understand? And so this wedge that you see, and it's not a wedge between all of us. You got some brothers who love sisters and some sisters who love brothers. But there are some, some bickering back and forth. That's why you have the woman's fear, YouTube channels, the manosphere YouTube channels. You got Kevin Samuels, you got Cynthia G. There, the whole movement of women saying we're divesting in black men. You got a whole group. I haven't heard. Well, you do have men. I don't think it's a movement. But there are brothers who are saying, man, the hell with black women. I'm going to go get me a white girl or a Latina girl because they're more feminine. They're not as masculine. So you
want to touch on
hear
that
this,
for sure.
Yeah. So you hear this bickering going back and forth between us. But I do want to say this. When you check the data, 95 or 96% of black women who do marry black men, and 86% of black men who do marry black women. It's just the marriage rate is extremely low. They say only 26% of us are even married.
Say 30, around 30%, right?
Yeah, around 30. Yeah, so are even married, and so that's a huge issue. We're not even marrying each other. And
Absolutely.
so again, yeah. So go ahead, sis. I know you wanted to touch on.
No, I'm sure I'll get to it. It's too many points to to actually touch on that you just stated, because for me, I lived with my mother and my father my entire life until my father passed, and so the way I see gender roles is completely different. I don't even have. For me, like you said, a lot of our roles or where we're picking up how we find love and marriage are from white people. And so it's like when I seen like my father, who had a record, he couldn't keep a job because of the certain record he had. Not only did my father have a record, but my father was very, very intelligent. Like I would come in the house and he's reading the dictionary and things like that, to the point where I got in trouble a little bit, and he showed me how to get myself out of my own case without needing anybody. And so that's when my respect level for him differed, because there was a point in time where my mom had breast cancer, and my father couldn't work, and because my father wasn't working, and because of him doing something at 17 that was following him for eons.
And that's what happens. That's what happens in this culture.
Absolutely. And then when I started to actually learn about the history and understanding, like, okay, well, what would put him in a position to do something at 17? And I'm learning, okay, well, my grandfather had certain issues, and then his father had certain issues, and then you actually stimulate where the issues are coming from, which is really directed towards slavery and some of the things that have happened to our older generations that are being passed down through to us. And so when it comes to yeah, sure, please.
Can I say something? So I just wanted to add to that, to plus one what you said.
Yeah.
So you said a lot of those issues came down from slavery. Not only slavery, but then post emancipation, post reconstruction, all of those policies and practices. All of those policies and practices that were created and implemented that strategically put black people, particularly black men, at the bottom of the racial hierarchy, at the bottom, locked us out of wealth, prevented us from even creating generational wealth. Not only did they prevent us from creating generational wealth, they also confined us to black neighborhoods, impoverished neighborhoods. So they literally relegated us. And so you got a whole bunch of black men confined in this space, poor housing, inferior education, no opportunities. What do you think they're going to do? So I just wanted to add that.
No, absolutely. And that's also what I'm seeing when it comes to on my end, because I'm kind of sort of going through some of the same things, which is why I have the show, and which is why I call the Health and Hip Hop, is to actually pretty much get those of us that are hooked onto some of those the way that we think, or the way that we've been taught to think, to actually open up a certain level of knowledge you may not even recognize because you're not looking for it. And so to bring back the point that I was making, just seeing my mom and my dad actually stay together through that, and I'm seeing a difference between my father not being able to keep a job and then keeping jobs. It was to the point where my father was like so on point that like he he when he would go into court, he was so on point because he would know, he knew so much that like it got to the point where he would have to come in at a certain time, but they wouldn't see him till he was last because they didn't want other people to see how he talked to the judges and how he talked and represented himself. The only difference is to me, him not having the actual income because of I feel like with that generation or before, it was more so, having the knowledge, but also now I feel like it's like more of a making sure that we're woke and not broke or whatever the case may be, in the sense of, for me,
Mm.
just understanding like, okay, you can be so conscious, but you also are still living here. So how do we mend that where we're actually still conscious but actually still thriving inside a nation that is still owned by our oppressors. And so one of those main things was just the actual connection to me, between man and women. And so just fixing the bickering between, getting us to understand each other. Because if it wasn't for my mother and my father and me actually seeing them too, I really don't know where I would be right now mentally, because I have an actual two examples that I look up to be able to have that comparison. So, a lot of my friends and stuff would come to my house and be like, I love the energy here, and they're seeing their parents bicker. I didn't see that. My mother never talked bad about my father, regardless of what things were going on when he couldn't keep a job and she had to go to work with no hair, and from her having breast cancer, and my father trying to tell her she can do it naturally. I seen the difference between her, respecting him, but not because of the income level. And
And
so,
that happens
not
a lot.
absolutely. And so just, seeing the bickering, and that being something that she probably grew up seeing. So I just wanted to touch base on that.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So okay, so another question in regards to relationships, right? And there's a whole thing going on. And I don't know if it was before, but I feel like now it's a big thing about 50-50 and like splitting things, and oh, what do you bring to the table? It's crazy to me. And so I wanted to know your opinion on 50-50 split, and then high value men and high value women. I saw a clip of you talking about that. So I'm like, I gotta ask you about,
Yeah, it's
your how you feel about that.
no, absolutely. And I just want to say for the record, I don't like listen to Kevin Samuels.
Yeah, yeah.
I've heard things about him.
Hmm.
I've seen clips, but of course I'm not going to base my perception of
Of
him
course.
on
Yeah,
clips.
of
Okay.
course. Of course.
Kevin Samuels, I know that he talks about how value men and how value
Hmm.
women. And so you have
Hmm.
women calling into the show,
Yes.
speaking to him, and I guess wanting him to, I guess, assess, them, and, my standards too high, just talking to him and getting some relationship
Mhm.
advice. And so I'm not sure if brothers call in. I don't, I
Yeah,
always
they
hear
do.
that.
They do.
Okay. So brothers call in as well. And,
Hmm.
and that's fine, whatever.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
the notion of being high value to me was, rather, I'm trying to look for the word that I want to use without
Okay.
being disrespectful.
Yeah,
It
understand.
was really ridiculous. I mean, I don't, I want to say something else, but I won't. But it
Yeah.
was rather ridiculous. You walking around considering yourself high value in a society where you don't own and control anything. You're walking
Absolutely.
around calling yourself high value in a society where 90% of the national wealth is owned by white people. About
Mhm.
1.5. I know there are different stats. There was one stat that said that black people own 2.6% of the
Mhm.
national wealth. Claude Anderson, I think his stat was like 1.5% of the national wealth at Powernomics. In The Color of Money, Mersha Baradaran said that we own like 1.5%. Now, we should be ashamed because this is around the
Absolutely.
same percentage that we owned like in the 1800s. I think like in the 1860s or 1870s. So we
Wow.
haven't progressed really as a people. I mean, despite the Jay-Z's and Oprah Winfrey's, I'm saying collectively we have
Mhm.
not progressed as a people. And so to call yourself high value in a society where you
Mm.
don't own and control anything is ludicrous to me. Now you're high value, but you don't own resources, any wealth building resources, any wealth, and any power. What do Black people actually control in America? Are we dominating the politics? Do we have political power? Do we have economic power? Do we even have social power? Hell, the LBGTQIA organization has more power than Black people in America.
Absolutely.
So how are we?
Absolutely.
What are we bickering back and forth over who's high value and who's not? Hell, none of us are high value, in my opinion, at this point. So
Wow.
you're looking down on Black folks because you may make six figures, or you may have a PhD and you work for a particular corporation, but you don't own that corporation and you are dispensable. So when the corporation no longer wants you, they get rid of you and your $100,000 or your six-figure salary goes out of the window. And so how are we using that as a metric? How are we using that
to
to
mate,
judge?
to actually
Right.
mate.
Right. Well, you don't make six figures, so I'm not dealing with you. You don't have a certain educational level, so I'm not dealing with you. Like, come on, we gotta get beyond that. And so that whole high value stuff, to me was it was unproductive, and it was utterly ridiculous in my opinion. Utterly ridiculous. And so again, you have right now the median income of a Black family is like $18,000. The median
Wow.
income of a white family is $125,000. There are reports saying that net wealth is it? I think it's the net wealth or net worth of Black people is approaching zero right now, and I think they said by like 2030 or 2040. I can pull it up really quickly, but it says something about the wealth is going to reach zero. It's approaching zero. So what are we talking about high value? I'm just trying to understand this. What are we talking about high value? If we were high value, let me ask you a question. If we were high value, would the prisons be filled with Black people? Because high value people aren't in prison. If we were a high value group of people, would the prisons be filled with Black people?
Absolutely.
If we were
That's
a
a good
high
point.
value,
Wow.
if we were a high value
That's
group of people, if we were a high value group of people, would we be scared? Why would we be scared that if our children go outside and and encounter a police officer, they may be killed? High value people don't have those worries.
Whew. Wow. Wow. Absolutely. Absolutely. And you can see it. You can see it. That's deep. That's deep. And speaking of that, when it comes to just the high value, I'm hearing that in our music. It's crazy, even from the music that women make. When you speak about, Erica Badu, and you speak about Lauryn Hill and Queen Latifah, even MC Light, to now it's like, look, you ain't even getting it if you can't buy me a Birkin bag, or you not even getting it. And I'm just like, this is like, what? Like, and it's a shame, because it's like the women are going there, we're literally making music degrading men. And on top of that, as hard as it is for men, or for Black men to actually, the ones that even have wealth still have to worry about so many different things. And so it's like, how is that even, and it's making it impossible. And it's also the men are feeding into that too, just like as if you hear the music with the men coming at us about, oh, you got to look like this, and if you're not a 10, or if you're not exotic, I'm not dealing with you. And it's just ridiculous, because it's causing our communities to get injections, or we're overworking and not working together, and causing us to build or learn without actually taking care of our bodies, because we want the outside to look so good, because we're not fixing what's hurting us internally. And this music is actually really hitting triggers on top of that. So
absolutely. No, absolutely. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut your wisdom. Go ahead,
no, it's that was just the point that I was saying. It's just hitting triggers. And it's like, okay, if it's hitting triggers, you can't even get out of the trigger, because the things that's triggering it is also causing you to do more damage to yourself, which is hustling more, or we got this no sleep mentality, and that goes directly against what the body is actually what it needs. We're here to work together. Like, we're wired as human beings to work together. And so the music that is being drained in our systems, and we know, we learn through music. You learn those vibrations and those
our body picks up those things. And so it's easier to teach somebody through music. Sometimes you can teach a child, you could teach someone ABCDEFG, easier than you can actually teach them. Some of us, we need to learn that way. So
No, I
it's
wanted.
a lot going on.
Yeah, let me plus one with
Yeah,
what you
please,
just said.
please,
I mean,
please,
I
please.
mean, you were 100% right when you talked about how the sisters are putting out music that degrades men. Girl, get them.
Mhm.
They even encourage women to rob him, take him
I
for
was
what he
just
got.
about to say
Yeah,
that.
yeah, rob
Yes,
him, take him for what he got. Girl, he can't do nothing for you, but buy you a bag,
absolutely,
buy you some shoes, buy
absolutely,
you,
absolutely.
so literally, it's kind of like, and then you have guys who actually say, all right, well, maybe I need to go out here and hustle and do this, because if I want to get a girl like that, I'm going to
Yep.
have to be able to afford, certain things. And so you're
Hmm.
sending bad messages to the women, the young girls
Absolutely.
who are listening to the music. And you're also sending bad messages, to the brothers who are listening to the music, because the young guys are
Absolutely.
probably saying, well, in order to get this girl, I might have to go out here and hustle or do this because I want a girl like that. And then, like you said, on the other side, you have the brothers who are making music and saying, well, like you said, I want a foreign, I want a Latina, I want this. And so you got sisters running around bleaching their skin.
Yes.
It's ridiculous, bleaching their skin, like you said,
Yeah.
getting these Brazilian butt lifts,
Yes.
where they're
Yes.
taking the fat out of their stomachs and injecting it in their butts, to
Nah.
be aesthetically pleasing. And see, this is what happens when you allow another group of people to control
Mm,
your standard of beauty.
absolutely. Absolutely.
What's your, I
Absolutely.
remember having a conversation with one of my students, and he's actually on Instagram. I had a and
Mhm.
when you air this interview, I'm going to take a clip of it and send it to him. But if he's listening, he knows who he is. And so I remember I was teaching a class called Introduction to Electrical Engineering, and he was excited about some girl that he was seeing. And so he
Mhm.
showed me a picture of her. He said, Doc, I think he said he was excited about dealing with her. And I said, well, let me see a picture of her. And so he showed me a picture of her. He went to her IG. And so I looked at the young lady and I said, I don't, no disrespect, man, but I don't see it. I don't see it. Oh, you hating on her, you hating on her. I said, why would I be hating on her? I said she has a face full of makeup, so I can't see what her
Mm.
her natural beauty looks like. She has
Mhm.
drawn on, eyebrows and fake hair, and I mean, I could not even see what she looked like. So I said,
Mhm.
how can you say this is beautiful? Needless to say, fast forward a year later, he approached me and showed me another young lady that he was dealing with, and she was natural, just a beautiful
Mhm.
sister, afro out here, just a beautiful girl. But I say all that to say, I said during that conversation with him and a few other young brothers that were in the room, I said, why would you want to pursue or chase a standard of beauty that if we applied that to your mother, to your
Mm.
sister, to your cousins, they would be considered ugly? Like, does that make
Mm.
sense? You understand? Like,
Mm.
to to
Mhm.
to to subscribe to a standard of beauty that doesn't include your women, your
Mm.
women. So we've literally allowed somebody else to define for us beauty. We have
Absolutely.
allowed another group of people to define for us what manhood is, womanhood, what it means
Absolutely.
to be a wife,
Mm.
what it means to be a
Absolutely.
husband, what it means to be a mother, what it means to be a father. And so one
Mm.
thing that we have to get back to, and this is one of the principles of Kwanzaa, Kuji
Mm.
Chagalia,
Mhm.
self-determination. So
Mm. Mm.
define ourselves, right? To be a self-determining people. So we define ourselves. We determine what's good, what's bad, what we
Absolutely.
should do, what we shouldn't do.
Absolutely.
That's what we need to practice. Kuji Chagalia.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I wanted to touch on, there was a statement that I had read from you. What was it? It was about togetherness. Let me see if I got it on my notes here. Let's see. One second. Mm-mm. Let's see if it comes up quick. If it doesn't, I'll try to paraphrase it. But basically it was stating, it was more so stating the power in togetherness. as opposed to, us going against each other. And so I think it was in reference to you actually talking about the high value and low value men and women. But I know I don't think it was particularly your statement. I have it written down, but I can't find it in my notes right now. But it was a statement that pretty much paraphrase. I'm trying to paraphrase it, but it was about togetherness as being the definition of power. Like that's actually, our power is working together. And can you touch base on, ways that we can actually become more united with each other, and your experiences on in that?
Absolutely. I mean, like they are, I mean, they've been it's powers in numbers. You take a hand,
Mhm.
right? And you see with your
Mhm.
hand, you have your
Mhm.
individual fingers. And these fingers work. They work just fine, right? When you want to pick up certain
Mhm.
things. But if something was happening, let's say that somebody was attacking you, you would form that
Mhm.
fist and then you would throw with all your might. So your
Mhm.
fist becomes a power. It's power. And so it becomes powerful. And so I say all that to say that absolutely there's power in unifying. That's why we have to mend this. That's why we have to heal the relationships between black men and black
Absolutely.
women and begin to establish families again, because there's
Mm.
power in having a family. Your family is your first power base. That's what the
Mm.
family does. Your family is a healthy family system, because that's what it is. It's a system. It's a system in which we pool our resources together. Um, we lend our labors to secure food, clothing, and shelter, and protection of that
Mm.
food, clothing, and shelter. With family, we establish our morals and values. Literally, the family is the foundation of the human being. It's our first
Mm.
power base, and so we know that
Absolutely.
families form communities, and a network of communities forms a nation. And so, if you
Mm.
want a powerful nation, you have to have powerful communities and powerful families. And so, your question is, well, how do we unify? Okay,
Mm.
how do we
Mhm.
unify? We unify through things, through having a shared goals, shared consciousness, a shared culture, a shared way of living. And so culture is extremely important to unifying us, because a lot of us, I mean,
Mm.
it's that culture, your way of living. And so
Mhm.
that's literally the glue to bringing us all together. Culture, um, identity, and purpose.
Mm.
Those are the different things. And see, look at this. Culture gives you identity, and culture also
Absolutely.
gives you purpose,
Yep. Absolutely.
right? And so it all
Absolutely.
boils down to culture. So I said identity, I said identity, I said purpose. Oh, and direction. Purpose, direction, and identity. That is what your culture gives you. And so what we need to do is in order to unify, is to return back to our ancestral culture. And that
Mm.
talk
That's a
and you
great.
say, well, how do you do that? How do you do
Yes.
that? Well, you do
Yes.
that through your education. Your
Mm.
education should be aligned with your culture and with your ideology. Your home should be aligned.
Mm.
Your home is the first system. So your home should be teaching you and reinforcing your culture and your ideology. And then your kids should be going to an educational um, um, system, or a part of an educational system, educational school that reinforces that culture and that
Mm.
ideology. And then whatever, if you're part of some type of spiritual, I don't know, institution, then your spirituality should be in line with your culture and your ideology. But culture is the foundation. Culture is the glue to unifying people. People are united through their culture. People are
Mm.
united through shared history. People are united through shared experiences, right? Shared
Mm.
identity, shared purpose,
Absolutely.
shared goal. That is what
Absolutely.
unifies a people.
That's a great point. And that's the reasoning of why, because the show to me, when it comes to hip hop, right? Um, the mainstream, it's like it doesn't, we're not, it's not talking about togetherness. Literally, it's usually like either our women, even when it comes to just our women talking about not only degrading our men, but a lot of the times it's like, oh, now the women are also now degrading. Oh, if you don't have this, or she broke, or she drives this, I drive that. And the same thing with the men. It's like, I don't care, I'll do it myself. Or in the music, it's like, I hustle myself. We're priding getting there independently. And a lot of the times we're not talking about, to me, we're not talking about the actual damages that can occur from having to overwork by just being independent, when we know that, like you said, it's strength in numbers. And so a lot of the times our music is not talking about unifying at all. It's the actual
No,
complete opposite. And
absolutely.
so that was why I wanted to actually bring that up, because it's to talk about the differences. So when I'm for me, I know when I've been on my own time. I've been blessed to be on my own time my entire life. And when I say my own time, I mean, um, I've chosen what I wanted to do with my time every time, whether it has been to not work and to just study and learn and to build a business or whatever it has been. Everything that I decide is on my own time, and it's not due to fear of lack. It's I choose what I want to do with my time, whatever that's going to be. And so when it comes to when I went through that experience first, and I was going or battling between, trying to build income. Now I don't have that issue anymore. But when I first was trying to like build wealth within myself before I could start to spread it out, I had to actually turn off certain music. And I'm a hip hop fanatic, and I can actually separate the two. But I had to turn certain music off. I had to actually not only turn certain music off, but I had to turn away from a lot of clothing and a lot of things, because it would it would when I couldn't get when I wanted, or if I wasn't thinking about, having to have this car or having this amount, when I played certain music, it was forcing me to rush, or was forcing me to compare myself. And so I'm like, wow, like it's so crazy how the mind can be distracted in so many ways. And so I wanted to just
Absolutely.
bring that point out, because I'm like, nobody, you can only get but so far without causing mayhem on yourself, working individually. It's no way you can get to the top level within yourself, or within whatever goal you have, without other people, because it's a ceiling
Absolutely.
you're always going to hit.
Absolutely. I remember, and I mentioned him earlier, brother Robert Jackson. Remember I said it was an older gentleman who
Mhm.
lived to be 105. His last words to me, and I was in my early 20s at the time. He said, "Never go through life believing that you don't need anyone." He said,
Mm.
"Everybody needs somebody."
Yes,
Those were
absolutely.
the last words he said to me.
Wow.
Everybody needs somebody. And that's a
Mm.
fact. So like you said, I mean, you can do certain things on your own, of course.
Of
But
course.
yeah, but like I even had to realize that there were things I wanted to accomplish, and I can do certain things on my own, but some things that I wanted to do required me to have a team, because you
Absolutely.
just can't be everywhere at one time. You can't be everywhere at the same time, and you can't be at
Absolutely.
different places at the same time, right?
Absolutely.
And so it was so some of the stuff that I wanted to accomplish required me to have a team. And so
Mhm.
it's important that we understand the power in working with one another, even down to it. I'm glad you mentioned how hip hop is a tool to teach. You said that earlier. And I wanted
Mhm.
to touch on that. I have a program, my family created a program called Meltrek. Meltrek is a hip hop animated series that
Wow.
teaches children history, the history, culture, and achievements
Mm.
of Black people from a Black
Wow.
perspective. And we use
Wow.
hip hop music. We have
Wow.
2 films. We're working on the third film. Our first film, Meltrek Exploring Ancient Africa.
Where could we
Teach,
find this at?
oh, you could go right on to Amazon right now. Type
Oh,
in,
okay.
yeah, go to Amazon, or you could
Okay.
come to our website,
Okay.
edanimeproductions.com. And to check out Meltrek, you can go to YouTube and type in, Meltrek, Meltrek. And so I always tell people when I talk about Meltrek that Meltrek is like a Hidden Colors. I know you heard of the film or the documentary series Hidden
Mhm.
Colors by Tariq Nasheed. So Meltrek is
Mhm.
like a Hidden Colors for children. So we have 2 episodes. Meltrek episode 1. It takes children back in time to learn about Africa prior to the arrival of the Europeans, and the children learn that African people are the mothers and fathers of humanity. They learned about
Mhm.
all of the great civilizations that were started by African people. They learned that we gave writing and religion and architecture to the world, STEM, science, math, astronomy to the world. In Meltrek episode 2, they learned about the indigenous cultures in North, South, and in Mesoamerica, they learned that before Columbus came over here, there were black and brown people here who had
Yep.
thriving civilizations. So they learn about that in Meltrek episode 2. And
Wow.
right now we're working on Meltrek episode 3, where the children are going to learn about the beginning and the beginning of the transatlantic slave trade, which we call the Ma'afa, which is a Swahili word that means the great disaster. But they're going to learn about what sparked the Ma'afa. And that was the arrival of the Portuguese in the early 1400s and early 1440s. And so they're going to learn about that. And so we're dedicating 3 episodes to exploring the Ma'afa. So in the first episode, they're going to learn what sparked the Ma'afa. In the second episode, they're going to learn how a network, a trade network, an economic system, capitalism, was founded on slavery, and how you had this triangular slave trade where you had Europeans, extracting, labor from Africa and sending African people around the world to cultivate cash crops, which enriched European people, and these European people were able to pass this wealth down to their generations and start these 500 fortune companies that we see today. These banks that we see today. Even look at Georgetown University. So some of the schools, banks, and businesses that we see today, they were connected to slavery. And so the children are going to learn that in episode 2. And then episode 3 is going to be dedicated to our freedom fighters. It's going to be dedicated to resistance. So they will be talking about, great Queen Mother Nanny, Carlotta. We'll be talking about Harriet Tubman, Nat Turner, the Haitian Revolution. We'll be talking about the Maroons. Okay. Wow. And so we'll be talking about that. And so they'll learn about the resistance, how we resisted slavery, because there's a growing sentiment among our young people that African people did not fight, and we fought. We resisted slavery. We weren't passive people.
Absolutely.
And so our babies are going to learn about that in Meltrek episode, the 3rd installment of Meltrek episode 3.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm definitely going to check that out. Speaking of, and unfortunately, we have to wrap this up soon. I definitely, if you would love to be on again, because there's so many things that I did not touch. But I do have another question in regards to teaching. So us teaching, our history and teaching in the proper way from our perspective, as well as our actual facts. There was a quote that I had picked up from one of your lectures, and it was in regards to self-hate and how inferiorization is caused by formal education. And speaking of, it's a great point to actually bring that in, because you just explain some of the topics that you're discussing in your film. So I wanted to talk on that, about that self-hate and being taught by these institutions of formal education. Could you go into detail about the actual what that's causing and what damage that has caused for us?
Oh my goodness, absolutely. And that quote came from, I'm not the author of the quote. Okay. That quote came from Dr. Kwame Nkoto, who wrote a book called African-Centered Education, Nation Building. And nation, it's called Nation Building, African-Centered Education, Theory and Practice. And he's an ancestor now, and I believe that he transitioned about, maybe a year or 2 ago. His daughter is still, working in Washington, D.C. and keeping his legacy going. But that came out of his book. And so formal education, when our children, when they matriculate through the K-12 system, they don't learn about themselves at all. And remember, self-knowledge is power. And so you can't say you're a powerful person if you don't even know yourself. You can't even call yourself educated if someone says, well, who are you? Where did you come from? Why are we in the position that we're in? Can you intelligently have a discussion about that, and what needs to, and how should we come out of it? Like, if you don't understand who you are, and you don't understand the world around you and how to navigate it, you can't call yourself an educated person. You are indeed a miseducated person. And so going back to your question, how does that create an inferiority complex? Simple. When our babies are going through the K through 12 system, they learn about the greatness of European people. From elementary school, we get up. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the Republicans. So we're pledging our allegiance to the flag, to the flag, right? Which is a
Oh,
symbol,
wow.
a symbol, a flag that our colonizers created, right? This is a flag that they created. What was the lady, Betsy Ross or whatever? A flag that they created. A flag under which we've been subjugated, lynched economically, physically, mentally, right? And so we're pledging our allegiance to this flag. We're singing the national anthem. We're singing the national anthem, and what is that? Oh, say can you? We're singing the national anthem. We're standing up. So we're literally indoctrinating our babies during this process. And so in history, they learn about Christopher Columbus and him discovering America. They learn about George Washington and how he was the first president of the United States. And then they learn about, Abraham Lincoln and how he freed the slaves, right? And so they learn all of these different things. And so, but when it comes to our history, oh, you guys were slaves. And Abraham Lincoln freed you.
Yep.
And then Martin Luther King helped you get rights. And that's like the gist of Black history. So on one end, you're learning about the greatness of European people, right? You're learning about the greatness of European people, all of the things that they discovered, the things they invented, the places that they traveled. They're great thinkers, right? You're learning all of this. And then not only are you learning about these people, you are participating in cultural holidays created by European people, Columbus Day, President's Day, all of these cultural European holidays. So you're participating in the cultural holidays. You're learning about their cultural icons, right? And you're learning about their history. And then when you learn your history, you were a slave, and Abraham Lincoln, a white man, decided to free you. And then Dr. Martin Luther King fought for you to have civil rights. What do you think that does to the self-esteem of Black children? You're sitting in the classroom wondering, well, what did my people do? What did we accomplish? Where did we come from? And then sometimes, they may show you some negative images of Africa. So you got young people who really have a negative perception of Africa. I know that I did when I was coming up, because I remember at nighttime, we look at the commercial, they always show you this African with a big belly and with dirt and flies on them, and flies. So you sit there like, oh, so there was someone come around and say, you're African. I'm not African.
Yes,
so they almost make you, so they show you negative depictions of African people on TV, in movies, right? So you learn about that, and then you learn that we were slaves, and then you learn. So what? It's not going to develop a superior complex.
Absolutely.
So we end up literally developing self-hate, low self-esteem, but feeling like we are inferior to white folks.
Absolutely. You know what? It's so crazy because, like, now that I'm thinking about it, right? When I used to come home from school and I used to ask my father to help me, he would be so frustrated because he would be like, this isn't even true. So he would have to tell me the lies to write down on the paper to bring the paper back to school. But then he would tell me the actual, like, he'll tell me facts on certain things. And I'm just like, so whenever I had issues with my teachers, when I didn't stand up, being young, my father told me I couldn't do that. So when I was, 6 or 7, I never stood up. And so my father would come to the, when the teachers would say something, my father would come to the school. And it was to the point where, like, I would come back the next day and they'd be like, oh, your father, like, wow, and this would be other cultures. So my father would come to the school and actually educate them. And so they, they never said anything, and they had a new respect for my father and for the actual facts, because not only are we being taught that, but they are too, and their children are too. And so they're not getting the history either. And I mean, why would you? I mean, most people are going to want, unhealthy people usually want, their race to thrive no matter what happens to other people. And so, they're also not being taught the truth as well. And so,
Absolutely.
it's just both. And I'm noticing, even, and that's where it comes to, just from the actual togetherness, just that I'm thinking in my, just hearing that is making me feel, and I'm saying feel because this is just something I just thought about just now. But I'm noticing that sometimes it's just hard for us to even trust each other just from the things that have been just monitorized to us and actually forced on us about how we see ourselves, whether it's through the news or how they're showing the lack of, our history. And so it's causing us to subconsciously not even know we're doing it. But I feel like even when it comes to Black people having businesses, it's like, why do we automatically are questioning the price of something that, someone sells, but don't question it in other areas. We're not questioning it when it comes to spending money on luxury lifestyles, but you're questioning it, with us, or you have to build or show 4 or 5 times trustworthiness within your business before someone can actually, trust it versus, some of us just naturally trusting other companies naturally, like you trust in McDonald's and you're trusting Starbucks, and you're trusting all these different companies that's in some companies you're trusting, you have no clue the history behind where it started. But it's a problem when it comes to somebody else wanting to do something different or wanting to sell something. It's like, oh, now you're doing that, and it's like, wow, where's that coming from? And to me, I think that also it just stimulates from just not knowing the history of saying, oh, all these other people were great and all these other situations are great. That's what you're doing. We don't have anything to even compare it to, if you're not looking for that. So just something that I wanted to touch on that I've just seen. So yes. Is there anything else you wanted to discuss or let us know about, or anything you wanted to touch on before we
Close out.
wrap up our
Abs- abs-
discussion?
absolutely. If you're interested in getting your child in a STEM-based program that teaches character, confidence, and capabilities, be sure to go to edanimeproductions.com. We offer a program called Conscious Ingenuity. And so your child is going to learn about character, history, and then also coding, cybersecurity, electric circuits, robotics, and much, much more. So that is also a program that's offered under the umbrella of Ed Anime Productions, which is a company that was founded by my family. So we offered the Meltrek program. Along with the films, we have activity books, we have story books, coloring books. We also have
Wow.
Conscious Ingenuity. So go to our website, Ed Anime Productions, to learn about all of the different programs that you can implement right in your home. A lot of our children
Mm,
attend the public school system, and as parents, conscious parents, we need to be able to say, okay, if I can't get my child in an African center school, then let me
mm,
supplement what they're
yes.
learning at the public school institution. And so that means investing in films, books,
Mm,
and programs, right? That can
absolutely.
counter or combat some
Hmm.
of that misinformation and disinformation and self-hate that is being
Yes,
ingrained
yes.
and embedding in our babies by the school system.
Thank you so much. I'm definitely going to check that out. That's so amazing, because even sometimes when I leave like a lot of lectures or debates, sometimes I'm leaving and I'm like, okay, that was good information, but it's not a follow-up. There isn't anything else that we can go and implement in our home. We're feeling good and that's great, but it lasts a week or two off that, off that energy. And then it's just like,
It's like
that's no, if
church.
you're not.
It's like church.
Yes.
It's like
Oh,
church.
that's a good
It's
point.
church.
Yes,
It's like church.
absolutely.
It's like, all right, well, that
Absolutely.
was great. But, like you said, what can we be doing in our homes? Well, these are
Absolutely.
programs that you can be working with your babies, programs that you can um, enroll your child in.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much just for your dedication to your purpose and pushing through, because a lot of the times I feel like for us it's hard. It's hard, and we don't have these outlets, and so this is, why I have this show, and I thank you so much because I really look up to you. And one thing I wanted to just let you know, so it's funny because right, I found your content, and I'm like, I shot my series 2 years ago. And I'm just now doing season 2. So this episode is actually part of season 2.
Okay, beautiful.
But yes, and so I'm thinking like, I'm like, man, I have to like to get this sister, like I know I have to like I'm probably have to have a lot more episodes in, and blah blah blah. I started thinking too much, overthinking, and that's the power of having other people around. So fortunately, Greg, which I have to shout out to Greg, and I was talking to him, he was like, and I forgot that he actually does the connections between having the lectures and different things. I actually forgot.
Yeah,
about
absolutely.
that. And he was like, no, like, let me just reach out to her. And then next thing you, well, actually, he didn't even tell me. He didn't even tell me. He was like, nah, I think you'll be all right. I'm like, oh no, but you know what? It's cool. Whenever the time is supposed to occur, I'm not gonna latch a time to it. It's just gonna whenever it occurs. And then he texts me probably like 24 to 48 hours, like, oh, she's waiting for your text message, your DM or your email. I'm like, what? Like what? I was jumping around in the house.
You know what?
Yes, so I just want you to know, like, I thank you so much. I appreciate you and I admire you, and I just want to give you your flowers. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for doing the show. I appreciate you
Well,
so
thank you
much.
for having me. I was honored by the invitation. Super proud of what you all are doing. I think it's
Thank you.
a wonderful concept. You know, you said hip hop and health
Yes,
and merging, or
yes,
combining or bridging, as you said, what you like to
yes,
do. And so I
yes.
applaud what you're doing. And if I can support you in any way, just let me know.
Thank you. Same as well.
All
Thank you
right.
so much. And yes, thank y'all for tuning into the Health and Hip Hop Show. Thank you so much, Dr. Maya. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Peace and love.
Peace, y'all.